Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to ATM Virtual. My name is Gemma Greenwood. I'm the Director of Communications Agency Content Inc. and I'm delighted to be moderating the third and final session of the Arabian Travel Market Saudi Arabia Tourism Summit. At last week's live show in Dubai, we heard travel and tourism leaders talk about the kingdom's potential as a tourism destination. We also heard from those responsible for heading up the country's fantastic giga projects, which stand out as world-class developments in so many different ways. So today it's time for Saudi Arabia's hotel industry to shine. The kingdom is the Middle East's fastest growing hospitality market and in many respects a blank canvas for hotel groups to roll out new concepts. That's why today's session is entitled Saudi's Hotel Roadmap as a Testbed for Innovation. So joining us today are three experts with their finger on the pulse. We have Mark Willis, who's the CEO for the Turkey, India, Middle East and Africa region at Accor. The group already operates some 37 hotels in Saudi Arabia. That's more than 14,000 keys, and it's got plans to roll out, if I'm correct, I think 22 more properties in the kingdom at least, which will add around 5,700 rooms. You can correct me later, Mark, if that's not correct. Thank you for joining us today. I'm also delighted to welcome Hassam Adab, who's the President of Hotel Operations at Dur Hospitality. Now, Dur Hospitality is a homegrown company established back in 1976, and it's grown its portfolio to offer a range of hospitality brands that really cater well to Saudi's demand drivers. We'll hear more on that later, but Hassan, thank you very much for joining us today. Before I introduce you to our last panellist, we had hoped that Olivier Harniche, the head of hospitality at Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, would be joining us today. Unfortunately, he can't make it due to some work commitments and he sends his apologies. But we do have with us Christopher Lund, who's Director and Head of Hotels for the MENA region at Colliers International. Chris is actually going to kick off our session today with a short presentation outlining some of the key trends that Colliers has identified for Saudi Arabia's hospitality sector. Before he does, I'd just like to remind you all watching today that at the end of our panel discussion, we will be taking questions from the audience. There's a Q&A button function on your screen, so please do type in your questions throughout this session and we'll select the best ones to ask our experts at the end. Right, Chris, it's over to you to set the scene. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you very much, Gemma, for the introduction. So I will run through a very quick presentation, just talking about some of the hotel and tourism development trends that we're seeing in Saudi Arabia at the moment. I want to start with the concept that we call integrated hospitality. Now, what do we mean by integrated hospitality? It is basically a hotel that is integrated with something else. Now, that something else, it can be a neighborhood, it can be a community, it can be a shopping center, mixed-use development, or even a theme park. But it is the fact that people want to stay in a destination rather than to stay in just a hotel room. People want that full experience. And I think this is the overarching trend that we're seeing in the other trends that I'm going to talk about today. So the four trends that I will cover, and there are others as well, but these are some of the key trends that we're seeing at the moment. The first one is lifestyle hotels in mixed-use developments in Saudi Arabia. Second one is resorts, including beach, desert, and mountain. Culture and heritage hotels, as well as experiential lodging. So I'll start with the first one, being lifestyle hotels in mixed-use developments. There's two concepts here. There's the lifestyle hotel, which is the hotel itself, which is very design-driven, concept-driven, efficiently designed in a way that it doesn't require that much space. Typically, it's urban property. And then there's the other part of the coin, which is that it's part of a mixed-use destination. Again, mixed use, it can be a variety of uses. It can be part of an office complex with a shopping center. It can be part of a theme park, a marina, entertainment center, etc. But the concept here is that when you walk out of the hotel, you are next to certain different things. It doesn't mean you have to be next to everything, but you're next to certain specific type of offerings. So it complements the hotel. And again, it does not mean that as a standalone hotel owner, you cannot develop a lifestyle hotel because it doesn't have to be that you have a bridge into the mall or a bridge into the office complex, but it's rather designing with the fact that you are designing to be in that neighborhood that you're in, so that people just walk out the door, there's a cafe, there's restaurants, you're close to the nearby activities. The great thing with lifestyle hotels is that they are suitable for all target segments. So, whether you're a leisure guest, a corporate guest, or a MICE tourist, they typically appeal to all of these segments. The second trend, which is quite a big trend, obviously you've seen all the announcements from the big giga projects in Saudi Arabia, Neom, Amala, the Red Sea project, etc. Beach resort is a big driver, and it's going to be a big driver for the target of 100 million tourists by 2030. Obviously, the kingdom it's a very big country, more than 2,000 kilometers of coastline, a lot of natural and untouched landscapes. You have, again, as I said, not just the beach, but you have the deserts, the mountains, the forests. So a lot of this, which appeals.
Doesn't we can
potentially.
Oh, there we are. Chris, you froze for a second. Apologies. So we only got the top bits.
Okay, so I'll carry on. So basically, this covers then beach, desert, and mountain resorts. Huge landscapes in Saudi Arabia, which will aid towards that target of 100 million tourists by 2030. The great thing here is there is a big drive to target domestic tourists as well. Just in 2020, 65% of Saudis traveled domestically, and that's during COVID. So obviously there was the plus and the minus on that side, but we see that there is a big drive for domestic tourists to experience these new type of destinations within the country as well. The third concept and trend that I will touch on is the culture and heritage hotels. Obviously, this is a big focus within the Vision 2030, to plan to double the UNESCO World Heritage Sites by 2030. We know that there's ongoing development in Diriyah, Alula, Al Balad in Jeddah. So there's several already quite large historical and cultural destinations that are being redeveloped into tourism destinations. And this, there's a lot of other hidden gems in the kingdom that we see will go on this bandwagon as well, of whether to restore existing heritage buildings or to redevelop around those historical centers as well. And there's a big opportunity here to capture the Umrah pilgrims, which obviously as a first priority, they are there for the pilgrimage, but as a second priority, with Umrah Plus visa, we'll be able to stay in all these other destinations close to Mecca Medina and even within Mecca Medina itself, whether it's Jeddah or in the mountains, all the way from Taif to Abha in the south. The fourth trend that we're seeing is experiential lodging, and this is more of a niche type of product. And again, it does fit with some of the other concepts as well of culture and heritage, including the resort segment. So this is a growing trend that we've seen before COVID and even during COVID, a huge interest for this because it does offer quite wide spaces. So especially during COVID, that was quite appealing. We've seen emerging markets like Tabuk, Alula, Taif, Abha, Al-Baha, and Jazan benefiting from this trend. And this, we believe, will really be used to activate some events in the kingdom, as well as remote destinations that are not that easily accessible. And the point here is, there's such a wide variety of experiential lodging. People think of, it's just a tent, but it can be anything from a small tent to, a very big and very luxurious and very complex tent, to a caravan, a cottage, a villa, a futuristic dome. It can be all of that. But the focus is on the experience and not on so much the construction materials. It's not about the wood, it's not about the marble. So this is a very big trend that we're seeing at the moment as well. So that was it for the four quick trends.
Fabulous. Thank you, Chris. And apologies, I think it might have actually been me that dropped out because we've just had a major storm here. So, yeah, sorry if everybody else could listen. I thought it was you, but I think it was me. So sorry for interrupting there. Thank you very much for that, Chris. Really appreciate it. So that really leads us on nicely to talking about some of the innovations that we're starting to see in Saudi Arabia in terms of new hospitality projects. Perhaps we can start with Mark. I mean, you've been, working in this region for a long time now. Saudi Arabia really is a blank canvas, isn't it, in terms of the breadth and depth of, even the landscape, the size of the country and the giga projects that are coming up. So can you tell us, what scope you believe there is to roll out something different in the country?
Firstly, I was looking this morning when I first went into the kingdom, which was 31 years ago. And you look at the development in the kingdom over that time versus the development over the last 5 years, it's quite staggering. There's a huge momentum, of course, with regards to interest and indeed investment into the kingdom. That's going to take it forward from a tourism perspective on so many different fronts, not least those segments that Christopher has mentioned. For us, from a core perspective, as you mentioned at the start, 37 hotels, with the largest operator there, over 15,000 keys. We see huge potential for growth in the kingdom. It's a wonderful development opportunity for us. We have 12 brands on the ground there, and that's also growing. 12 different brands out of the 40-some brands that Accor has. The kingdom is it's a relatively greenfield site, and obviously people think of the big destinations of Jeddah and Riyadh, the holy cities, of course, and the Eastern Province. But if you've been fortunate enough to travel across the kingdom, as I have, and I always say I've been to more places in the kingdom than many Saudi nationals, because I literally have traveled everywhere. All the locations that I mentioned before, Taif, Baha, I've been to all those places. And as the kingdom opens up and tourism comes in, people will generally be surprised at the beauty of the country, the diversity of the country, whether you're up in the mountains, in the snow, no less, or in the desert, which is to be expected, to the UNESCO heritage sites, to the Red Sea sites and the giga projects that are coming. I traveled all that coastline. It's absolutely staggering, and of course, much of it is untouched. So from a core perspective, and again, the other brands included, of course, huge opportunities for Saudi Arabia moving forward. On top of all those very positives, not forgetting they have vision, they have commitment, and they have desire to develop the country and take it in a different direction, which I'm sure they're going to do, not least under the 2030 vision project that they have on the table.
So what would you say would be Accor's most innovative project there that's kind of underway or planned? And I'll be asking Hassan a similar question in a minute.
If I look at the involvement of Accor with the giga projects, obviously, as you would expect, we're heavily involved. But the thing that springs to mind for me is the Al Ula site, which of course is getting a lot of press and a lot of PR, and rightly so, by the way. Everybody knows Petra, and from a visual perspective, the two sites look very similar. Al Ula is absolutely breathtaking, and if you get the chance to go, you should definitely go. And we've been operating there with pop-up sites, restaurants and hotel for some time now, but now have a fully fledged luxury banyan tree going into that site. It's well underway, and looking forward to that opening in Q4 this year. It's going to be an amazing hotel.
And that fits into experiential lodgings, would you say, that Chris was talking about?
Absolutely. I think obviously Banyan Tree is a luxury brand, a luxury experience, but if you look at the Mantis brand that we have, which is very well known in Africa, It is very much an ecotourism brand. Again, we have some Mantis sites that are only half a dozen rooms, but that fits perfectly into whatever location that's proposed for. Lots of opportunity for Mantis in Saudi Arabia because of the diversity of the country. So, and I would agree, I think you'll see a lot of ecotourism come into the country.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mark. Now, Hassan, I mean, Dürr Hospitality, you've really seen massive transformations given, how long the company has been operating in Saudi Arabia. How has that accelerated, over the past few years, and how is Dürr adapting its offerings, its hospitality concepts in line, with Vision 2030 and the changes that are happening so quickly?
Thanks for asking me. I think what I can see that first of all, Dur used to be the traditional hospitality developer in the country, housing major brands both in Riyadh and in other cities, particularly in Jeddah. Recently, we have, well, not recently, a couple of years ago, we launched our own local brand, Makarim, which is purely dedicated to the holy cities, Mecca and Medina. And we will talk about the potential of this in a second. From 2030 vision, actually, we adopted all the components, and by saying that we need to be present in all these mega giga destinations, so we are in direct contact. We have revamped all our operations, or hotel, I'll call it our portfolio. We took advantage of the COVID last year and fully renovated our star hotel called Makarim Ajyad. Makarim Ajyad used to enjoy 90% occupancy year-round for the last 15 years. So you can imagine the wear and tear to the property. Actually, we did not stop, and we used this particular period to renovate it completely. We embarked a couple of years ago on a new hotels in different cities other than Jeddah and Riyadh. So we continued and opened the Holiday Inn Jubail last November. It's really brand new property, 40 rooms, well, 100 rooms and 40 suites, and it is really operational and became a star in the city. We continue on this development. We made an expansion to our Marriott Airport. We renovated recently the phase 2 of Crown Plaza in Riyadh. So you see, the 2030 vision and the innovation is to keep the product up to speed and not outdated. Maybe you're aware of that 2 years back we acquired Shada, which is a service apartment brand. Actually, this proved to be extremely successful because the domestic market during COVID worked really hard. So it has proved to us that we were ready for the domestic market and encourage Saudi citizens who are maybe not allowed purely for COVID restriction to travel outside the country, moving around, and the apartments or service apartments also was a good potential for and destination for all these I would say travelers. So we embark in all this, and we've done our part, and we're looking forward for, I would say, a good recovery in the next quarter.
And when you were undergoing all these renovations, what opportunities did you take to kind of innovate, and maybe through technology or anything new, that it gave you the opportunity to introduce to keep pace with what guests are really wanting these days?
Actually, it's what we have done in our newly invented brand, service apartment called Dara. We have encouraged the self-check-in with the kiosk. So I think we went directly to having from the booking directly to the kiosk, allowing our travelers to come, book directly and move into their rooms. Many other innovation of this kind. So we, as you all know, we are now on Zoom. We modified the majority of our conference rooms into have at least these kind of facilities, knowing that future travelers will require immediately a direct meeting, I would say, connectivity with their home base, or whether with their workers or their board or others. So I think these are the things which have been working on. Needless to say that we also emphasized a lot on our softwares and programs to do a better revenue management and train our people to be up to speed with all latest I would say, best practice in the industry.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Hassan. Now, Chris, coming back to you, Hassan's been talking about service departments. That's quite an underserved market, isn't it, in Saudi? Is that something that you've identified at Colliers, and is that where you're seeing investor interest as well?
Yeah, it's right. I think we're seeing the same as Hassan mentioned, that gap in service apartments. Obviously, if you look at the supply in the kingdom, you will see that there is a very large stock of service apartments, but they are typically at a unbranded level. So these are typically very small properties, 20 keys, 40 keys, etc. But there is very little internationally branded or even domestically branded good quality stock, which I think is under development in a few places. Some have already started coming up, and they have shown to be very successful. And actually, looking at the kingdom and how it differs to other destinations, typically service apartments, you would see the majority being long stay demand. So people that will stay there on maybe on a weekly or monthly basis. But in the kingdom, actually, this is one of the preferred ways of families to travel together, because they get to stay in a two-bedroom apartment, for example, with their family in one unit, rather than to be spread in different rooms in a hotel.
Mark, what's Accor doing in terms of the branded service departments in Saudi Arabia? How big is that for you? Because you've got so many brands, different concepts. Yeah, how do you prioritise these things? Again, I guess the mixed use element comes in here too.
Absolutely, and you can see that elsewhere, not just in Saudi Arabia, across the Middle East. I think historically you had very much this hotel entity and apartment or residence buildings were a separate consideration. And over the last 5-10 years, we've seen these dual asset investments, which Christopher was alluring to at the start, where investors are putting together a hotel, an office, and indeed a residence, looking for full mixed use and indeed with support entity of shopping facilities, etc., associated with that. For us, it's a key element of our business. A good selection of the brands are associated with hotel residence service departments. We've got Fairmont Residence in Riyadh coming, which is an amazing site. It's going to be wonderful. That'll open later in the year, and Swiss Hotel Living coming in Jeddah, which again is the first one. So there's definite momentum in that segment, and for Saudi nationals, they've been used to traveling outside the country and looking for residential stay, traveling as a large family, etc. So it's not something new, but traveling into Saudi Arabia, it's definitely something new. But I think it's something that'll increase as leisure travel increases into the kingdom, and also people look to stay longer. And really enjoy what is a fabulous country with so much to offer, and travel with their family, which historically perhaps has not been the case.
Now, I mean, Saudi Tourism was saying last week about how really during the pandemic last year in particular, it really gave Saudi nationals a chance to experience the country, and also for hotels to test out some of their concepts. So it was actually a bit of a win situation for Saudi. Hassan, do you agree with that? I mean, what benefits came from catering more to the Saudi market? And did you have any learnings from last year into this year in terms of your, how you can better cater to demands?
Actually, it was a great success as far as we're concerned, because we've seen some of our hotels have been really booked by Saudi nationals or Saudi travelers, mainly in Ubhur, in Jeddah. We have a resort there, and we can see we used to have the two seasons, you should call it the high and the low season, but we've been really busy continuously, mainly on weekends. So we've seen a good demand and what helped also, as you know, the education system online. Okay, so I think Saudi families were not restricted just to stay at home or send kids at school. They can have them with them. And we provided to all families all the facilities, from internet connection or privacy for their kids to continue and follow their schools. So it was a big shift, and not only in Jeddah, but almost really everywhere. So I believe domestic market grew and was an eye-opener for all of us. We were focusing more on international travelers, corporate businesses, and conferences. I won't say ignoring the domestic market, but not paying attention to it. But during this pandemic, it proved that it has even greater potential if you focus on it. And as Mark mentioned, the families will stay longer in the hotels, will come up with the families. And actually, it's more cost effective for them than traveling abroad also. So I believe that it was a good experience for all of us, and now we're focusing on it big time.
Brilliant. Is there anything you'd like to add on that, Mark, in terms of, last year and
Oh,
the Saudi market?
it's a very interesting topic. Of course, we all know, not least the international brands outside Saudi Arabia, how important the outbound Saudi travel is. Of course, there's a lot of outbound travel, as we know, whether it be into Europe or into the rest of the GCC, etc. But let's not forget, Saudi tourism within country has always been there. We to Hassan's point, not that we ignore it. I don't think we ignore it, but it's just something that happens, and we forget. There's a lot of internal travel to key locations: Najran, Taif, Baha, Jubail, these type of places, which again, high in the mountains, 10 degrees cooler, by the ocean, where there's some beautiful sights, of course. So that it's not that travel didn't go on. Obviously, last year, due to restrictions, outbound travel fell dramatically. But that desire, not only in Saudi Arabia, by the way, everywhere else, you saw similar kind of statistics. If you look here in the UAE, as people didn't travel out of country and staycated, whether it be in a hotel or a residential, those numbers were very, very positive. I think there's still a huge desire to get out of your home and get into a new environment. And as we've all seen, myself, yourself included, I'm sure, even if we couldn't travel far, we still wanted to travel. And based on that, I look forward very positively as we see some kind of recourse and turnaround as the pandemic hopefully subsides as we go forward, and you'll see international travel resume also.
Now, and I've had an interesting question come in, so I'm going to bring this one in now. We've had a question that says, and it's to the whole panel, and I might start with Chris actually. Given the sizable millennial population, I guess they're talking about in Saudi, why is there not a larger hospitality offering catering to this? Now, Chris, from what your overview, would you argue that those concepts you're talking about do cater to millennials? What do you think?
Yeah, they do. I mean, the lifestyle hotel concept that I talked about initially, not just from a design, it's very colorful. There's a lot of design elements into it. They appeal obviously to younger generations, but I think more and more to other generations as well these days. But I think that's one aspect, which is the design and the colors and all of that. But I think the other aspect is very important, which is architecturally, they are, number one, more efficient. So the younger generation, they would rather stay in a 30 square meter room, but have access to, cafes and restaurants when they walk out the door, a cool shopping strip next door, rather than, being stuck in a 40 square meter room, but when you walk out, there's nothing next to you. So I think this is changing. Obviously, the development life cycle of hotels, it takes time, because from you have the idea of developing a hotel until that hotel opens, you're talking about 4 or 5 years process. So I think we're seeing that starting, and there's a few opening already, and we will just see, I think, more and more of these properties catering to that.
Like you say, it takes time, doesn't it? Now, Mark, I don't think anyone's got any more lifestyle brands than Accor. I think that's undisputed. Yeah, I mean, what do you think about the, catering to the millennials in Saudi? Where do you think you're at with it at the moment?
Listen, first of all, I disagree with the millennial point.
I think we've all got a millennial mindset. That's what I think these days.
Exactly. You know, the dynamics of staying in a hotel for many people, whether it be on business or leisure, has changed, and not related to the situation of last year. And if I go to a hotel, I want fabulous food and beverage. I want a new and fresh design if I can have it. Everybody wants to be connected fully from an IT perspective. All these key elements fall into that lifestyle bracket, whether we like it or not. From an core perspective, you're right. Of course, we've got the big lifestyle portfolio. We see it as an absolute growth sector, whether it be here in the Middle East, specifically in Saudi, or indeed across the rest of the world. And you can see that represented in the brands Mondrian, SLS Hyde, Delano, 25 Hours, Mama Shelter. They're all very, very cool, very, very funky, experiential brands, key locations, all very, very focused on food and beverage, public area experience, etc. You know, that's also tying in with our merger with Ennismore, which is Hoxton, which is a very well-known brand, and also us separating out lifestyle from the rest of the portfolio as a single entity to make sure that we don't lose brand validity and what we're trying to propose to guests from an experience perspective. And we see huge traction with this as we move forward. Just opened SLS in Dubai. This is, let's all agree, this is not the best time ever to open a hotel in the current climate with the current restrictions. And the hotel is doing wonderfully well. I have to say, it's outperforming the norms of a hotel opening, regardless of the current environment. Now, if you look at Saudi Arabia, to Christopher's point, of course, it takes time. And Saudi Arabia is coming. Development opportunities with regards to lifestyle are definitely on the table. And again, not only with Accor, but of course, my counterparts with the other brands also. And I think it's something that you'll see grow and develop as we go forward in Saudi Arabia over the coming years. Absolutely.
Yeah, watch this space. I'm
Yeah,
sure it'll be there soon. Hassan, millennials. So do you think your brands and your properties cater well to them, and how do you think the situation might evolve to, going forward? As we said, everyone's got that millennial mindset now these days anyway. So maybe we talk millennial mindset rather than age.
I like it this way.
Me too. Forever young.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you cannot. You keep the millennial word aside, and you really more focus on the experience. So I think what Saudi Arabia has to offer, I think, a greater offering from an experience point of view. I think Mark and Chris mentioned the scenery and the diverse scenery of Saudi Arabia. And what the millennials looking today is for exploration, to be educated. But the product which we are looking for is a simple product, is accessible, is trendy, is really agile, and preferably not expensive, because this is where they are maybe at the beginning of their career, and then their earning is different from others. So I think if we provide all of this together in one product, that will be ideal and make it spread it across, I would say, the kingdom. And I think Mark mentioned many lifestyle brands which are spreading all around, but I think you need to look to the size and the volume and put them in the right destinations. From our point of view, our newly created brand called Dara, D-A-R-A, it is a small, I would say it is a locally made brand, really stylish, simple, accessible, and cater 100% for the so-called millennials coming in. So yes, we're part of it as we speak. Yes.
And do you see that in the guest demographic? The people staying at Dara properties, they tend to be, what's the profile?
Say again, sorry.
Sorry, what's the guest profile of, the guest profile at Dara properties? Are you seeing that it's, younger?
I think young generation coming up, just newly graduated, new couples coming up, coming with one child if necessary, and they can opt to stay, whether for a shorter stay or a longer stay if they want to. We say the product itself is about the rooms, grab and go food around the destination. The location is the vicinity, as Chris mentioned, to be accessible to go and have a restaurant around. So this is what the product is all about, as well as the target guests or customers.
Great, thank you. Now I'd like to come on to sustainability and responsible tourism. Now it's, it's more than a buzzword, it's a global movement. It's, in hospitality it's become key. So no more can it be a token thing. It's expected, isn't it, by guests to have a sustainability element. And obviously when you've got the giga projects, Al Ula, for example, that Mark was talking about, Diriyah in Riyadh, those projects are very much sustainability focused, preserving the environment, etc. Now, Chris, what are you noticing, first of all, in terms of projects and expectations from maybe both operators and owners, and how that landscape has changed in terms of sustainability being built into every aspect of hotel developments in the market in general, but in Saudi, obviously, that's the topic today.
Yeah, so just from our experience, we used to see that the operators used to have more experience in this. They used to be the one to suggest to developers, certain green building practices, etc. But now, actually, we're seeing that developers, they're taking this very seriously themselves, and they're even going over and above, the requirements, and they want to achieve better and better certifications. And they see it not just as a marketing tool, because I think nowadays people do care about that, but also they care more in their developments, and they see that it does matter, and that potentially some green building initiatives have cost savings long term as well. So in terms of energy consumption and all of that. So we're seeing it obviously in the big resort giga projects, but we're seeing it as well in smaller developments in the cities as well.
Right. So would you say it's become one of the most important factors?
I think one of the return on investment typically is the number one most important, but it is definitely becoming.
Because obviously there's cost benefits and efficiencies there, aren't there? Mark, what would you say, how the kind of tide has turned in this respect, and what are you implementing in properties in Saudi Arabia where perhaps like Banyan Tree, for example, but then generally across your portfolio?
Just to add to Christopher's point on return of investment, and of course we're here to provide return of investment, but I think that has changed dramatically over the last 5 years, where people are, when I say people, big corporations, big companies like Accor, and indeed the other brands are so conscious about doing something detrimental to the environment. As Christopher said, it's become such an important topic, and rightly so. There's this new generation coming through, and they are our guests and customers, and they are so mindful of this topic, and you just cannot afford to get it wrong from a business perspective or indeed an ethical perspective. With regards to Saudi Arabia, I've been super fortunate to have been on the ground there pre-announcements of Vision 2030 and pre-announcement of giga projects. The amount of review that went on 5 years or more before those things were put on the table, and very lucky, 7-8 years ago to fly down that Red Sea coastline in a helicopter and review the absolute natural beauty of what it looks like if there isn't any people in such a location versus a location like the Maldives, etc., which is beautiful. Of course it is, but there's hotels everywhere. And you need to be so mindful of that. You've got wonderful, super aggressive development going on in Saudi, but it is absolutely being done with care. And some of which I'm quite surprised at, because you see financial opportunity, which is just turned away because there will be a negative impact to the environment. And the government entities that we're dealing with, dealing with the giga projects, Diriyah Gate's a really good example, with Jerry and the team on the ground and Neom, etc. Everybody is being so conscious to make sure that yes, you want to put these projects into place, but no, you definitely definitely don't want to impact the environment. And given the diversity in Saudi Arabia and what it has to offer as a new destination, not forgetting global travel has grown and grown and grown statistically over many years. Saudi Arabia is literally a new destination outside business and religious tourism. And it's definitely coming, and it'll be one of the top 5, top 10 destinations in the world to travel to as a leisure guest. But it needs to be done in the right way. And again, I think the authorities are doing a wonderful job of keeping a really firm grip of infrastructure that they put in, which is sustainable, but not at the expense of the environment. It's very cool to see, I have to say.
Great. Hassan, what's your perspective, and how have you seen the sustainability angle change during your time at Dur, and how important is it to your company?
Well, look, it's very important because we embarked on it a couple of years ago when we started working on our new project in the diplomatic quarter in Riyadh. And actually, the newly built or opened 2 years back is the Marriott Diplomatic Quarter Hotel. This hotel was conceived completely and actually won different awards. The concept was to be environment friendly. It is located next to Wadi Hanifa. It's in the area. And the total design is just replicating Wadi Hanifa. So this shows the concern of Dur in particular and the authorities around by implementing really environmental friendly from a concept and design point of view. The same hotel was really won different awards, and actually the one very well-known award is the LEED Golden Award, okay, for respecting all environmental, I'd say, specifications. Recently, we're embarking our hotels on a complete solar panel. Another Marriott downtown will be finishing its project and will be, I would say, self-sustained from a power point of view. And once this project is finalized, we replicate to the rest of our hotels. So the company is really very conscious about it, and I can't agree more with what Mark and Chris mentioned, that I think it became a self-conscious, and it's no longer an option. It is become like part of our day-to-day work and implementation. And I believe that this is great things happening to the world. Because Saudi Arabia is a greenfield, I think you can see the impact faster in the coming term with the giga projects and any new project coming up. Authorities are very conscious on this one, and actually they're controlling and imposing certain elements to be environmental friendly. So this is where our contribution is.
So do we feel that really Saudi has the potential to become like the global benchmark for sustainable hospitality and sustainable tourism? Anyone can answer that.
With the 2030 vision and all the new project, new technologies coming up, self-conscious for everybody, okay, whether from the consumer, the developer, the authorities, there is no doubt that it will become the leader.
Mark?
You know, I had a really interesting comment from somebody that said there's 2 untapped locations. One's the North Pole and the other one's Saudi Arabia. You think of that as slightly a comical comment, but it's not far wrong. Saudi has not been on the map. It's a massive country, 20 million square kilometers, huge country of such diversity. And very few people have been there when you look at it statistically. Saudi Arabia putting itself on the map today with Vision 2030, and it has the experience of the globe of the last 20 to 30 years of real globalization when it comes to travel. And I think they're really making an effort to look at all the things that were done really, really well, and also learn from some of the mistakes that were made where environments have clearly been impacted from over tourism, et cetera. So I think it's taking a long, hard look, and I think it's doing things in an absolutely perfect manner as it takes itself forward.
What other trends do we think might, come up in the future in Saudi? I mean, I keep saying it is very much the blank canvas. Hardly anyone's been there. What do you think we could see in the future that would be really different to anything we've seen anywhere else in the hotel markets? Chris, sorry to spring it on you. Beyond your presentation, where do you think this could be?
Anything completely different. I mean, The great thing what we're seeing in the kingdom is, with such a young population, there is such a drive to invent and to come up with new concepts and new ideas. And we see that in areas that obviously take much shorter time to develop. So if you look at the retail concepts and coffee shops that are popping up, that are super funky, super cool, new tech companies coming up as well. So there's an Airbnb type of company that just secured their Series A funding a couple of days ago, $6 million. So there's a lot of innovation from the youth country. I think technology is definitely one of the aspects that will drive it, because as developers are being driven by the younger generations as well, they will demand for where are these tech solutions in the hotels that we are developing. And the good thing is, a lot of the operators have already a lot of these tech solutions available.
Great.
So I think technology is one of the areas.
Yeah. Mark, what do you think? What are we going to see in Saudi in the future that's going to be out there? Do we think Saudi is going to overtake the UAE, which is really tends to be the first place that new brands and concepts go? Could we see, a Saudi be leading the way?
Yeah, well, why not? Of course. Look at the UAE, what's been done in the last 25 years. It's absolutely staggering. When I first came here, there were 7 hotels. And here it sits, top 5 global city destinations from a Dubai perspective. Saudi obviously comes new to that table from a global tourism perspective, outside religious tourism. But I think you'll see Saudi move forward very, very quickly. They have intent, they have desire, they have finances, they have infrastructure from an investment perspective. And again, you'll start to see not only Saudi, but GCC and indeed global investment come into the country. People see it as a relatively secure location to do business and invest in. And again, I think there's a general belief that investment made into Saudi Arabia is a really solid one. And I would absolutely suggest that is truly the case as we go forward and these giga projects materialize. So yeah, I see Saudi bringing itself very much to the forefront as a leisure destination or tourism destination, and with that will naturally come innovation of that moment. As you reference the UAE and Dubai, you see a lot of new things come into Dubai, and yeah, I'm sure that'll be the case in Saudi Arabia. Not forgetting, maybe I'm old and a little bit traditional. Saudi Arabia's got a wonderful offering of brands across all segments, from ultra luxury, for us that's Raffles, luxury, Fairmont, Sofitel, etc., down to mid-scale eco today. And you add that lifestyle element to it. With that will come its own innovation and promotion of locations that previously people wouldn't have thought to have gone to.
Hassan, what potential do you see going forward?
I will mention about the segment which was not discussed yet so far, with the holy cities. Okay, this is a major segment for Saudi Arabia before even thinking of developing other, I would say, leisure and other markets. So the number of pilgrims today is 8 million, and the aim is to grow it up to 30 million. So just in between these two cities, okay, Mecca and Medina, there is an immense number of rooms and projects coming up. And what happened during COVID is that the entire market called segment has been restructured. And today you need an appointment to go and visit the holy mosques. And it's really structured. When you look at the TV, it used to be crowded. Now it's fully organized, well disciplined. I believe personally that this is even for a betterment, looking after the health and security for all the pilgrims. It will be increasing progressively and coming up to the right numbers in a more disciplined way. COVID was a positive sign for this from a number perspective and hygiene. So I see that this is an element where will contribute to the number of arrivals to the Saudi Arabia.
Actually, it's an interesting point because these days hotel companies have almost become healthcare providers as well, haven't you? The role has evolved with COVID. With the holy cities, I mean, there's many developments going on there, and it's expanding. I mean, Hassan, how might we see, you know, new concepts come into the, you know, the religious tourism offering in terms of hotels and what they start to offer? Will there be more health and safety guidance, perhaps, or, you know, technology for testing, that type of thing? How do you see that happening going forward?
Actually, the same development happening elsewhere is happening also in these two cities. You will see from the government took a really major step in reworking the classification of the hotels, revoking license for those who are not compliant with health, life, and security. They are also very keen on awarding, I would say, the normal rating from 4 to 5, and even removing stars from certain hotels who are not compliant. They look to the specification like any other worldwide classification for the hotel. So if the hotel is lacking even one facility, the license is removed or revoked, or the ranking of the hotel is decreased accordingly until the owner of the property bring it back to normal. So it is really happening big time as we speak in disciplining the market in those two cities.
Just had a question come in about the someone's asked about wellness and lifestyle trends post-COVID. Where do wellness and rejuvenation projects stand in this respect? Again, kind of looking post-COVID, if we can do that. Wellness, I mean, again, that's another movement, the same as sustainability, isn't it? It's one of the priorities for everybody these days, accelerated by the pandemic. Where does that fit in? Perhaps, Mark, you can answer that one.
I mean, the wellness trend obviously is not a new one.
No.
That has gathered pace over the last 15 years and continued to grow. It's become nearly an expectation. You know, especially if you're at a premium hotel and up, most properties have some kind of a wellness facility, whether it be just a gym or other, associated with the hotel. There's a huge growth in wellness demand, and you see that all over the globe, not just in the GCC or in Saudi Arabia specifically. If you have a solid wellness offering at a property, it is a real positive addition from a guest perspective, and today well utilized because the customer is so much more knowledgeable with regards to this topic. And you know, if you look back a few years, we were all a little bit more carefree with what we ate and how we lived our lives, etc. And that's not the case today. People are very conscious on this topic. They want quality. People want a wellness experience, but they want a quality wellness experience. And you need to know your subject matter because the guest definitely does these days. That's for sure. No more so than Saudi Arabia, where the wellness offering today is at a really high level at many hotels, and that'll only continue to grow. And if you look at some of the destinations that are opening up as part of the Giga Project portfolio growth, etc., there's a lot of wellness in those locations, as you would expect. So I'm sure you're going to see it grow very much in the kingdom as we move forward also.
And I think wellness these days is kind of integrates with everything, doesn't it? It's the whole hotel experience. You expect it to be, you know, even I know a lot of hotels are now even monitoring air quality within the hotel to make sure that aspect's available. So obviously that goes hand in hand with sustainability as well. So I'm quite interested also, got a few questions about Vision 2030 goals. Where are we at in terms of Saudization in the hospitality sector? There's obviously some goals for that. And how much input from Saudi nationals is there in hospitality these days? Has it become much more vibrant? Hassan?
Well, actually, there is a barometer where all hotels need to achieve a certain percentage every year in increasing the Saudization. This is from one fold. The other fold is there are some specific, I would say, jobs which are exclusively now given an offer to Saudis. And actually, if you do not comply with it, you are subject to certain fines, and fines are heavy. So the program is really on, and the beauty about it is the government is supporting this kind of Saudization programs. There is a program called Tamhir. Tamhir is basically a betterment of knowledge and enhancing skills. This program gives the employers 6 months as free new trainees. So you can have as much as you want trainees where the government give them the pay, and you can take them and train them according to the needs. And obviously after 6 months, there is no obligation to keep them, but you can, here is exactly the right ground to detect the best performer and keep them within the organization. And I think this is a big, I would say, support to both the students, the new graduates, as well as to the employers to have new Saudis joining the properties. So it is the topic of every day for all of us. We're working on it. Our GM managers are working on it on a, I would say, daily and regular basis. The look here is to pick up the best, and we are fully aware with the new demand coming up, there will be more people leaving us and going and working for others. But I think this is the same. You face it in every country, developing country. You're going to start and encourage the people. Now, our duties, myself, Mark, and all the colleagues in the industry, is to encourage these people to take hospitality as a career. Okay, if you look at all of us, we started our career in the hospitality business. We ended up there also. So it is a good career, and I think the message is from all of us say it is a good career to start with and to grow up.
Now, Mark, I know you love talking about service. It's one of your favourite topics. Are you seeing the passion from, Saudis for working in the hospitality industry? Because they see the country opening up, they see all these new projects. It must be exciting for them. I would have thought so. What's your experience?
I thought we were going to go a whole call without me saying anything controversial, which would have been a positive, of course. This is a very interesting topic, and as I mentioned before, I'm here a long time, and I was one of those senior leaders in the industry that was very adamant that it was the wrong way to go to put in place Saudization targets and percentages, etc. And I push back at that quite heavily, and as Hassan said, there's implications to that, whether it be financial or other. I was very much of the opinion that if you want people to come into this industry specifically, we're in the hospitality industry. You really need to want to work in the industry if you're going to make a positive impact. And for many years, I was pushing back at that one, I must say. Today, we're in a slightly different scenario from a point of view of there is natural growth into the industry. We communicate better what the industry is. The forced, you must reach your percentage is much less of a discussion today than it ever was, because the industry is gathering momentum. It's a much more dynamic place to work, and is perceived as such by Saudi nationals. And you can see that in the figures. And again, not only myself, but the other brands also. The numbers have increased dramatically with regards to Saudi nationals working in the hospitality sector. From a core perspective, we employ 34,000 people in the kingdom today across the country, of which 32% are Saudi nationals. I mean, it's a fabulous figure that you absolutely couldn't have dreamt of. Government legislation or government, restrictions that or targets that were put in place aside, that number is driven by people actually wanting to work in the industry, which is just super to see. Yes, you're 100% compliant with the government targets, but that's not the goal for me. And again, I apologize in advance for anybody that thinks I'm being controversial. The key is that people want to work in hospitality and enjoy the environment that they're working in. Otherwise, our industry just doesn't work. Yeah. And today, you can go to the kingdom and have a very good experience regardless of the individual's nationality. The other key one for me, and again, I've been a big pusher on this one for many years is the amount of females that are working in the kingdom and indeed within our industry. 35% of the management roles in the kingdom within Accor today are ladies. And that's wonderful to see. I remember not too many years ago appointing the first female general manager in the kingdom. And at that time, it was a slightly controversial appointment. And it's wonderful to see that the kingdom is progressing and is an advocate of diversity in the workplace. And again, if you're going to take the industry forward positively, which they really have a desire to do, you need Saudis in the workplace, you need ladies in the workplace, and you need to recognize diversity, absolutely.
Mark, I'm going to have to stop you there on that really positive note because we've literally run out of time. Did have a few more questions. We'll have to do it again soon. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for ATM Virtual, and thank you to our panelists, Mark, Chris, and Hassan, for taking the time out to speak to us.
Thank you.
We're really looking forward to seeing you again next year, live and online for ATM 2022. Until then, please stay safe and stay well. We look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.